All righty. Thanks everybody for joining us. We're going to get started at the top of the hour here, so just give us a second. All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us. My name is Sammy Focarino. I'm the Senior Events Manager here at Consensus, and I'm going to be the moderator for today's session. This webinar is presented by Consensus. Consensus is leading the world into the new era of demo automation. Our platform gets your buyers what they need when they need it. It then multiplies your revenue team's impact with unique insights on those buyers. As a result, you'll see faster close times, larger deals, and higher close rates. You can learn more at goconsensus.com. We're very excited to be gearing up for our largest event that we host every year. Demo Fest is a virtual event, so you can access it from anywhere that you are in the world. We have over 50 speakers set to present the sessions. It is May 21st through 23rd of this year. We highly encourage you to register, even if you can't make it to the live event. All of the sessions will be recorded, and anyone who registers will have first access to the recordings. I'll post the link to register for that in the chat. We encourage you to participate in today's webinar. Our speaker will answer any questions at the close of the session, but you're welcome to post your questions at any time through the Q&A box on the right side of your console. If at any time you're having technical difficulties, press the help button on the right side of your screen. And now I would like to introduce our speaker. Scott founded Tech Salescraft LLC in 2023, but has been planning it for years. He brings over 30 years of experience in recruiting, developing, and leading technical sales teams to drive sales and customer satisfaction. He has experience at major technology providers such as Juniper Networks, Cisco, Nokia, DriveNets, and counts many telcos, carriers, service providers, and U.S. government organizations as his customers. And with that, I am going to turn the rest of the time over to you, Scott.
Sammy and Consensus, thank you very much. It's great to be here. Let me get my screen set up appropriately. There you go. That looking okay?
I have a rainbow spinning wheel of death on my end, and I don't see it, but that might be on my end.
That's
there we go.
not
I
good.
see it now. Yeah, it looks like it
Very
was
good.
All
Well,
right.
excellent. I'll get this moving. Boy, it really is great to be here with you all today. We'll just do the Australian thing and say good day, because that covers you wherever you are, time zone wise. It's a pleasure to be here with Consensus, and I want to tell a story about an old dog myself that can learn new tricks. And I'm going to try and keep this light and use pictures as much as possible to tell the story. I'll start out with this. This is an old picture of me. You can probably tell by the differential in gray in the beard hair. But that individual on the left, looking at the screen, was my old dog, Yankee. Yankee was definitely an old dog who learned new tricks. She helped me walk off a lot of weight and maybe even save my life. So whenever I hear this phrase, I think of that wonderful dog, Yankee. So let's get the dry stuff out of the way. You know, from the materials promoting this event, you'll see here's what I wanted to lay out for you. Where you need a deep dive, where you can and must rely on other subject matter experts for next level details on new technologies that you're learning, how to take highly theoretical concepts and ideas from PhD level product architects and then process that and turn it into relevant demo talk tracks that persuade your customers. And then taking these skills and just going beyond. That's ticking off exactly what we want to make sure we highlight, but let's be a little more fun with it. Meet we can, however, agenda we must have. I'll take you through the story this way. You know, the main point here is the saying, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. It's just wrong. I want to tell you the story of someone, me, an old dog who's been through a technical career, took an entrepreneurial plunge, had to dust off and reapply SE skills and learn new tech. Those would be the new tricks. So I'll take you through the story, a little bit on how I took the entrepreneurial route, how I was pushed into learning the new tricks, and then what we did in terms of demo development, demo delivery, and so forth, and then kind of take it beyond with newer tricks. I've got the Q&A window open, so please post questions as you have them. I'll do my best to multitask, and if I see a good question that I can answer in flight, I'll absolutely do my best to do that. So here's the old dog part. I love music. Music tells stories, and let me tell you a Dave Grohl Foo Fighters story. So if you know a little bit about the story of Dave Grohl, you know, he's part of the band Nirvana, which had a horrible, tragic end. He basically had to stop playing music for, I think, something on the order of 9 months till he got a phone call from Tom Petty, probably Tom Petty's manager. And there was an offer to Dave Grohl to have him play with Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers on Saturday Night Live. And he said yes. And they looked like they had a great time. I love the video clips of it. You can go search for it on YouTube or your favorite video consumption platform. And Grohl got another call after that gig and said, look, you know, we need a full-time new drummer. We'd love you to be the new drummer for the Heartbreakers. And Grohl did something he was extremely uncomfortable with. He said, no, I'm going to take this music that I've been recording in the back of the Nirvana bus for years, and I'm going to go do something completely different. I'm going to move from being the drummer to the frontman, lead guitarist, and singer, and create Foo Fighters. I feel like starting my own consultancy is my Foo Fighters moment. So I've had a long career of being the guy in the back, being the drummer, working with salespeople, and kind of moving out in front and forming my own company. So that's the short emotional version of how Tech Salescraft came into being. I certainly had fear and excitement and fear and excitement throughout this whole process. It's a real mix of the two, multiplied by whatever factor you can think of. But it was a great decision. I'm glad I did it, and it's enabled me to do much of what I'm going to talk about here today. So starting out, learning new tricks as part of my own consulting company. You know, it's really useful to have some work to do when you start out. And I had a good friend and colleague that I'd known for decades who basically connected me with some work associated for a government agency that was all about taking people with go-to-market skills like technical sales and marketing and business development, and marry those go-to-market skills with companies that were really good at delivering basic technology that was not yet productized. And having that go-to-market view and marrying us with companies that we're trying to figure out, should this technology become a product, or should it become features in someone else's platform? Making that kind of evaluation was how I got engaged. And having that first consulting gig, you know, having it out of the gate certainly made me feel like a success kid here. I've tried to represent kind of how we come into these technology engagements. And this, you know, having lumps of clay and forming it is the best picture I can give you on this. So you come along and work with basic technology creators. You know, they provide the raw material, these lumps of clay. There's lots to work with there, but it's not in the form of a product. It's not ready for customer consumption. So this particular program is all about bringing people along who can do things like, okay, well, here are use cases that this technology might fit in. Here's a way you might need to package this technology into a product. Here's how you might pitch it and demonstrate it to a customer. Well, we do exactly these sorts of things and help form the clay into something that actually looks like a product, or what could be a product. Doesn't always go to product and go to market in the way you might think. But this is kind of representative of the process. Now, for me, here's my career growth up to this point. I started out in that lower left-hand corner as, originally a technology trainer and eventually an SE, who would get nervous before every presentation, every demo. I still do today. It kind of keeps me grounded. It feels like, that's healthy from my perspective. I progressed in my career to be an SE leader and an SE VP at one point, having an organization of over 250 sales engineers. In that role, from the top left corner down to the bottom right, I did a lot more critiquing of presentations and helping people improve and suggesting what they could do to be better communicators from a technical sales perspective, to back in the upper right corner, deja vu all over again. Being, again, that new nervous presenter, learning new tech and having to figure out, okay, what does it mean to demo this technology and this product? One of the really exciting things about this particular project was it forced me to dive into things I knew I needed to learn for the future of my career. I'd been a traditional network engineer and very, very focused on physical networking technologies and devices, routers, switches, firewalls, and so forth. And of course, we've all seen cloud take off. So I had to really start elevating my cloud skills, really getting into AWS and learning more about security and identity access and management on AWS as a platform, but also take a look at competing and similar functions on Azure in particular, but also with a mind for Google Cloud in the future. And I also had to learn Terraform, at least start diving into Terraform for infrastructure as code for this particular software system to work. On one hand, again, being in the industry for over 30 years and forcing myself to learn new tech, that might seem kind of intimidating, and it was intimidating to a certain extent, but I've always been a lifelong learner, really enjoyed taking on new challenges. And again, these are tools and technology areas I knew I'd need to be more literate in for the rest of my career, however long that may last. So that was actually a good thing that it forced me to do it. I would say too that even as an SE leader, as cloud became more prominent, I was an advocate for SEs in my organizations to start learning cloud skills, bringing AWS in particular training content into an SE training curriculum, even if it wasn't directly related to the things I was doing or they were doing. These are good skills that are going to help you as cloud becomes more and more prominent. Let me just breathe here real quick and remind folks that the Q&A box is open. Feel free to populate stuff or ask questions as we go. So this is a lot of detail on the particular tool that I'm talking about. It's an application security tool that used all sorts of technologies that I also had not touched. I won't take you through all the out of context snippets on this slide, but let me just point out the technology areas that I wanted to dive into deeply, but I couldn't, and I had to understand where the lines were. So there were components of how this tool worked that involved graph theory, all sorts of different domain-specific languages for different pieces of the cloud components that communicate in these systems. A branch of programming and mathematics called formal methods, which is really about proving that computer code does what it's supposed to do and only what it's supposed to do. More details of application security than I'd ever touched before, and many other topics. Now, I'm the kind of person that, again, I really like to dive in and learn things. And because I wanted to be credible as I demonstrated this prototype product, I wanted to be able to answer any question and be able to talk about any of these 4, 5, 6 things that I've mentioned. And it became obvious to me early on that I didn't have time to do all that because this was a project with a budget with timelines. And I had to learn enough of these different technology areas. But I had to consciously rely on other subject matter experts as a go-to for questions when other first order things or beyond first order things came up. I'd learned to prioritize on the fly, and I had real challenges letting go of being the SME that could go deep on everything. This was a challenge for constructing the demo and kind of getting the basics of what we wanted in the demo. But also, for me as running my own company and knowing that my hours were billable, I had to spend my time on the things that were actually going to help move the ball forward for the project, not just pet projects or pet things that Scott was really interested in. So I think I mentioned this before, but I'll just reinforce it here. Because I really enjoy learning, it was good. It was a strength and a skill that I was able to leverage as part of this project. And again, just figuring out where to draw the line. I would say, as an adjacency, and for anybody who's thinking about what's happening career-wise right now, being a lifelong learner is a very healthy attitude to adopt. The nature of the tech industry is disruption. We're not guaranteed a role or even a career based on things that have happened in the past and things that we see coming in the future, especially along the lines of AI and how AI could transform how certain jobs get done. So adopting a view of being a lifelong learner, I think, is a really helpful perspective. Okay, so the warm up. What were other factors that I needed to think about and engage in to actually create the demo? Ideally, you sit down with architects, developers, other folks who understand all those technology areas behind the tool, and you have conversations like this in brightly lit, collaboration areas and really nice, office buildings. That happened a little bit. More realistically, most of our interactions look like this, where there was a lot of back and forth over Zoom, over Microsoft Teams, you name it. Pick your favorite video collaboration tools, and this is the way we get things done, right? That's okay. But there was many pieces to coordinate with a team distributed across the country. Lots of detailed questions with the system architects, and applying that not just as an SE developing a demo, but kind of wearing a product manager hat. Okay, what would a prototype packaging of this tech look like as a tool? Thinking like a product architect, how do all the pieces come together? And all sorts of people who had all sorts of other background, right? Lots of collaboration was needed to get this done. That was just from the demo development and practice side. Then there was the prospecting and working with all sorts of different customers and delivering the demo over and over and over and taking feedback. Of course, on that front, might be obvious to most of you, but practice does make perfect. I'll take a second here to say Consensus really helped me use video to practice my talk and my pitch over and over, even without the delivery mechanisms. My first exposure to Consensus as a tool really showed me the value of recording and replaying and watching my language and really fine-tuning and honing things as we go without needing a live audience all the time. That really helped force some discipline and made the content of the demos better. So once we did our prep and had a set of demos, now literally we have the pitch, and that looked like this. And this should be familiar to you Consensus users. Many deliveries of the tool, both live and distributed recordings. Getting feedback, letting people see previews of the material up front before getting into a live Q&A session and diving deeper on certain parts of it. Again, going into the actual details of the tool and the demo are probably not great for this particular presentation today, but these are a couple snapshots of both the value proposition pitch we had to give and the actual demonstrations of the tool. So there are a couple things that really were impactful for me along the way. Let me share some of them with you here. First, imposter syndrome is the thing. And you'd be surprised that so many people are in positions where they don't think they belong there. How did I get here? I don't have the depth of knowledge to be able to talk about this or that. I have a good friend and colleague who runs a podcast called the Imposter Syndrome Podcast. And he's been able to interview, I think, well over 100 people across the spectrum in the technology industry where they talk about their experiences of not feeling like they're the ones being able to perform in a certain role or so forth. How this impacted me in this particular project, again, on that old dog, new tricks theme, I really wanted to get the pitch and the demos perfect. And when we were on the verge of being ready to have the first recordings ready of the demo, I'm the type of individual that would just really hang on to it until I got it just perfect. And I remember an in-person meeting one day with two of my colleagues who one basically just said, well, just show us what you have. Don't try and get all the rough edges off it. Just let us see what you've got so far. And I gave in because I got the feeling that he wasn't ever going to give up. If I said, no, let me just take one more crack at the recording. And I let him see the best version of what I had to that point. And he said, this is great. Let's do this. I'm going to schedule on a call this afternoon. So on one hand, it was, a little uncomfortable, but, kind of being pushed over the edge was the right thing to do in this case. So imposter syndrome, can help motivate you, but you come to a point in your career where, it's like you've been doing something long enough that your good effort can be really good, and you just need to go with it. That was one big lesson I took away from this demo development. The next lesson learned for me is letting it go. I promise not to start singing Disney songs here. But to my point about all the new tech that I could have dived in on, I just couldn't do it. I had to learn enough. I had to go just deep enough. Everything needed to be kept in the context of time to delivery. This is not just true for demos on an hourly basis, but for products, for consulting services and so forth. You really need to learn to prioritize what's most important and put your time on the things that are most important, even though there are other pieces that you think you need to do or you might want to do. Letting it go can be very, very useful, in terms of task prioritization and time management. My apologies to Woody and Buzz here. Another lesson learned is that the team is important. Nobody does everything by themselves. Again, Consensus was a huge enabler for me in using the platform to create and distribute video. One of the organizations that built Tech Galois had those product experts and those SMEs that were so valuable to work with. And my good friend at Solutional was the one who pulled this all together for me and got me engaged. It was a great first consulting experience as part of my new company. And on the Consensus front in particular, let me just call out to Alex and Taylor. If you are listening or you hear this recording, really appreciate your help from the Consensus side on this front. So the This is a really good experience in developing some confidence and turning this into um, learning newer tricks. And to stick with the Yoda theme, confidence really matters. And this is certainly linked to the imposter syndrome discussion. But, you know, once you've done something enough or for long enough in a career, you do develop a sense of confidence that lets you keep going and maybe even not care so much about critical comments or non-constructive critical comments. Um, this experience out of the gate here in my consulting role really showed me, well, I can learn new things pretty quickly. I can figure out what the limits are to how I need to apply them, and where I can say, it's okay. I'm not the deep expert in that, but I know where to go get questions, it, or get questions answered. It really reminded me of an experience much earlier in my career when I was interviewing for a job as a trainer, a networking technology trainer. And as part of the interview process, I was asked a question that I had never ever thought of before. And for the networking nerds among us here today, it had to do with the behavior of TCP over satellite links, what's known as a long fat pipe problem. And the long story short there is if you lose packets over long fat pipes, you can get really poor performance. Um, but I told the interviewer, who was the owner of the company, I have no idea, but I'm happy to get back to you on that. And I was told that was one of the key factors in actually getting the job, because I had the ability to say, I don't know. They didn't want people that were tried to fake it till they made it all the time, or, made up answers to questions in a technical realm. That's really bad. So, that was an early instance of my career that's reflected here. It's okay to say, I don't know, and you can go figure things out, especially today. We live in um, the most information-rich environment in human history. So lots of resources you can go to look up things on. I do like this representation of confidence level. Um, when you're behind the walls of Slack or some other chat mechanism, you can be really bold. But you get on a call or a video call or in face-to-face meeting, and your confidence level goes down a little bit. Sorry, that's just a little humor aside. Doge is one of my favorite memes to utilize out there. So having this confidence, having the ability to dive into new technology areas, I've been able to take this and do some different things. One of the things that I've done in my solopreneur career is help co-found an organization called the Network Automation Forum. And without giving a whole additional spiel on NAF, as we like to call it, basically, I've done things with network automation for over 20 years in my career, and it's always been something that's been very interesting. But there's a phenomenon we've noticed in the industry where the adoption of network automation has not moved very quickly. And I met another individual who's done similar work. His name is Chris Grundeman. And we got to talking and basically said, why do we think this is? What's the holdup? And we said, we're entrepreneurs. We don't need to go ask anybody's opinion. Let's do something about it. So we decided to host these annual meetings, conferences essentially. We put together our first conference last November in Denver. We set a target of having 200 attendees, and we got over 340 attendees. That was amazing. And we're now working on our next instantiation of this in Amsterdam, in the Netherlands, at the end of May, just 2 months from now. So we're very excited about what we've been able to do here. And in terms of leveraging presentation and SE skills, I'm not doing the presenting at this. We're basically working with all sorts of subject matter experts who are coming and developing content for telling success stories of what they've done in their own networks, and then bringing that and sharing it to a much larger audience. My role in this kind of goes back to my career progression slide, where now I get to engage with subject matter experts who are going to be presenting, who would like some help in honing their presentations and delivering them. So that's been extremely fulfilling and kind of a use of my SE presentation skills over time. If you're curious, you can go take a look at what we're doing here at networkautomation.forum. Or you can search for Network Automation Forum on YouTube, and you see all our content from the Denver event there. This is not something that was on my radar when I formed Tech Salescraft, but going and forming my own consultancy gave me the flexibility to engage in something like this. And, from a confidence perspective, being at a place in my career where I felt like I can try things and they can fail, gave me the confidence that, the downside here wouldn't be that bad, even if it was not a success. And we have been so pleasantly surprised at the response that we've gotten for this from people trying to drive network automation in their own environments, and from vendors who sponsor these events that really want to see more opportunities for things like this. Another project that I'm working on outside of my consulting clients and Network Automation Forum is something that I'm calling Total Network Operations. Long story short, folks who operate networks tend to be the least appreciated people in the world. And they're always under the gun. They're always stressed. And I've got to thinking, what if we had a better framework for helping organizations optimize their operations teams? So I came up with a couple of ideas in terms of, well, what if we took a more holistic approach, view all these technology disciplines and tools that we use, and really take a systems thinking approach and making sure all the tooling is working together to optimize network operations. We also need to make sure that all those tools and processes we set up align to business and mission objectives. So that was one key thought I put out there. And then, especially with the advent of AI, but other key technology areas like automation, like multi-cloud networking and more, I felt like there was a need to put some emphasis on organizations proactively exploring and integrating new technologies, not just letting things happen, but going and allocating time to evaluating new tools and tech that they can use in their operations environment. This is really just an idea that I put together late last year. I started soliciting feedback on it from probably over a dozen friends and contacts in the industry so far. I've gotten great feedback. I've done several podcasts on it, and it might turn into something more. So again, taking that technology heritage that I have that accumulated over the course of a career, and using those SE presentation skills to be able to form coherent thoughts and be able to discuss and get those ideas across to other folks. That's been extremely valuable. I don't know if this will become a revenue stream for me, but I think it's something that's needed. And I think I'm going to focus on seeing what I can do to bring it to the marketplace, and then, see what comes from it. And then I'll have to go back to the prioritization discussion I had before, focusing on what are the things that are really going to matter for this, and how can this help me feed my family, essentially. So another extension of, the skills that have been built over a career, really influenced by being an SE. I have other projects too, where I work with organizations to help them optimize their SE organizations, do individual coaching, do team coaching, and with larger sales organizations as well. I love team building. Team building's my favorite, to quote Elf here. But that's been another thing I've really been super excited to engage in, and make a part of my offerings over time here. That's the end of my slides. I would love to hear from the audience. What questions does this raise with you? I know there's also a chat function here. I haven't been able to focus on the chat function, but we've got plenty of time for Q&A here. Happy to hear from folks. Sammy, did you see anything come in?
We haven't yet. So guys, remember if you do have questions, you can post them in the chat if you want, or you can post them through the Q&A function. And we will, let's see, we had one come in, favorite team building activity over Zoom.
So I am a fan of the virtual happy hour. And it can you can enjoy whatever beverages you enjoy. But that, maybe not at the end of a day on a Friday afternoon, but taking a little bit out of the workday, just giving people a chance to chat and get to know each other a little bit and not have to talk about work. Um, it's I would rather do that face to face, of course, but being able to do that over Zoom has been kind of fun. I'll also say uh, I had opportunity a couple years ago to an executive that I work with was departing a company that we were a part of, and one of his colleagues basically did a virtual happy hour to basically say goodbye to this guy, Mike, who was exiting the company. And that was actually a very classy way to let people share stories and say goodbye to this individual. And basically, at that point in time, I think that was during COVID, and it was the only way to get it done. So that was very cool. I see some Q&A coming in here. Let me go down that list. Marcel asks, do you think being an SE is a good prep for going as an entrepreneur consultant? Marcel, that's an unqualified yes. I think my exposure, about 15 years as an SE and an SE leader really helped me prepare myself for what I'm doing today as an entrepreneur. I would call out some specifics here. One of the models that I used in a sales organization was something we called the customer team model, where customer team is just like what it sounds. Your face, who are the resources from the company facing the customer? And obviously there's sales, there's technical sales, but you have customer success, you have marketing, you may even have engineering and development that have interaction with a customer. If you think about a table that has all those seats at the table with a sales leader playing quarterback or, arranging what does the interaction look like with the customer. As an SE in that model, I got exposed to all those other functions in the company. And that really helped me think about, okay, what would it look like to wear my marketing hat? What would it look like to wear a customer success hat? What would it look like to be wearing a product management hat? That's something that I got from my SE experience that really exposed me well to all those other pieces of the puzzle. I'll also add here, one of the things I would have done differently, I would have paid more attention to the business side of things. As an SE, you're in a sales organization, and most SEs have the ability to really understand what's going on financially with a customer, down to the level of detail of what margins are you getting from product sale and so forth. I could have been more proactive and learned more about that over the course of my career. I wish I had spent more time on it. I don't think I've been horribly held back by it, but it's certainly something I've been forced into more directly since running my own company. I hope that makes sense. It's a great question. Another question that's been posted, how do you manage your regular work duties, but also find time to continue learning? Another great question, especially in the context of this. This might sound snarky, but I'll say it. Find ways to get paid to learn new things. Take on projects where you know enough about something, and use it as opportunity to dive deeper on things. That's certainly one of the most efficient ways to dive into new topics. you don't always have those opportunities. So aside from getting paid to learn new stuff, um, it's it again, that cultivating lifelong learning and just wanting to go off and say, well, I want to learn more about network infrastructure for AI workloads. This is something that I'm working on right now that I'm diving deeper on. You can take the approach of, I'm going to schedule time in my calendar and I'm just going to spend an hour a day learning about this particular topic, or for learning in general. Um, it comes down to balance and priority management. Sometimes there's not enough time in the day to do everything you need to do, especially adding on learning tasks like this. But you find a cadence and you find a way to make it work. Um, I would also say, don't forget to take a breather, and do the things outside of work and learning that give you mental refreshment. For me, it's being able to spend time with my family, my wife, my grandkids. That we have a growing number of grandchildren now. That's really important to me. I make sure I make time to do that. But yeah, I think the bottom line here is, if you find a way that works for you, stick with it and try to keep learning.
We had another question come through the chat, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Any suggestions on letting it go? Any specific strategies to move beyond a bad demo and move on without rumination eating at you?
Yeah, it's hard, right? And that's certainly something I've wrestled with over the course of my career. If you tend to be a perfectionist, if you get anything wrong, the wrong mouse click, saying the wrong thing, or not going as deep as you wanted to, um, this may sound completely orthogonal, but I have found that getting good exercise helps me worry less about things like that. And how do those dots connect, right? I'm not sure I could explain the physiology to you, but I'd say in the last, 12, 13 years, I've learned to pay much better attention to my health, my physical health primarily, which is directly tied to your mental health. And you know, that I don't want to just put it on exhaustion. A little exhaustion does go a long way in helping you care less about things that aren't as important. Um, but there's been a direct connection for me there. Um, Aside from, health, um, I think over time, as you develop confidence in who you are in your career, you do become less susceptible and are able to let things go um, more easily than it might have been earlier in your career. I think there's a flip side to that too, that when you do get negative feedback on something, or even constructive feedback, do whatever you can to embrace it. It's information, and you can use it to make yourself better and make your demo better next time, make your presentation better next time. Um, it's really useful. It's often uncomfortable, but do what you can to embrace, the unsolicited feedback without worrying about being a people pleaser. Hope that makes sense. There was more on this in the Q&A. Sammy, do you want to take us through that?
Yeah, and I lost it. How that happened? One sec. Okay, let's see. So I like the let it go suggestion. As a tech sales, I always believe that quality of the demo content may affect the outcome. In your experience, is this true? Rather, other skills may compensate. For example, a good pitch. Also, practicing the demo is really hard with tight deadlines. Any suggestions on this? So kind of a multi-part question.
Sure. So all of this is important. The one thing you don't call out here that I would say is just important is to read the room, especially the people that you want the demo or presentation content to impact. So don't just press play at the beginning of your demo. And I would highly recommend, don't ever say anything like, could you hold your questions to the end of the demo? I know sometimes you may feel really justified in doing something like that, but find ways to interact and really connect, answer questions in process if you can. if you have the ability to, see the whites of their eyes, which I cannot with any of you on this webinar today, but if whether it's on a remote demonstration medium like this, or even better if it's in the same physical proximity, see if people are getting it. Take time to pause and say, I've just gone through some fairly complicated items here. Let's take a break and see if what questions you have. Did that make sense to you? Is there more I can tell you on that? Help me, Sammy? I want to make sure I cover any salient other points that were mentioned here. The question on the quality of the demo content may affect the outcome. That's true. No question about that. Sometimes the quality is out of your control. Like something might go wrong with the back end of a demo at some points. Live demos are always risky. Practicing is helpful. Assuming nothing else, goes awry in the time of the demo. I, not just because this is Consensus sponsored and hosted today, but I think there's a great case for recording things that are stock. Like if you're going to show the same thing 79 times to 79 different customers, save your live demo experiences for things that really require interaction. Record the simpler things for lather, rinse, repeat clickability. That's an approach you can take as well.
Okay. Sorry, I was on mute before. I was answering your questions on mute.
Oh, I'm sorry. I can. Very good.
That was my bad. But I think we are, does anybody else have any other questions? Let us know. Otherwise, I think we're good. We covered all the questions so far. We've covered so many awesome topics. I love it. If you guys want to connect with Scott, if you have any extra questions you want to ask him, definitely connect with him on LinkedIn. His LinkedIn is right here. You could just search Scott Rabone. But other than that, thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you, Scott, for lending us your time and expertise. This was such a great session. Thanks everyone for engaging with us through questions in the chat function. We really appreciate it. We hope to see you all at DemoFest next month. Until then, we'll see you guys later. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.